Hello, welcome to SimpliWell, where we bring you simple methods for healthy living. The food pyramid is changing, and that matters more than you might think. Today we're breaking down the differences between the old and new food pyramid and what those changes mean for your health right now. So let's get right into it. All right, so we have a slide ready for you guys with some great information. So what's going on with this new food pyramid? Let's go ahead and break this down and see what's happening. But first, we're going to go ahead and start with looking at the old pyramid. So what are some things that you noticed?
All right, so we just kind of go through the structure of the pyramid to begin with.
Okay.
So the pyramid is structured from smallest to largest. Obviously, the point would be the things that they want you to eat the least amount of. And at the bottom, these are things that they would say you need to eat the most of. And so you see in the old pyramid, the things that they want you to have the least amount of would be things that contain a lot of fats, sugars, and salts. And then you have spreadable fats and oils would be the second. Meat is the third. Then poultry and nuts. These are like things that you eat that have fat in them. And then you would have milk and yogurt and cheese, those things you drink that have fat in them. And then the things they recommend eating the most of would be carbohydrate-rich foods, and fruits and vegetables would be the biggest. Now, I think it's obvious that most people were not following this pyramid.
Yeah.
Even so, I think that's one thing, and we actually heard a great presentation by Dr. Scott Stoll where he brought this up, how the pyramid is released, but a lot of people don't even follow the pyramid. So we're going through this, talking about some of the changes. A lot of times people are happy about certain changes that they see in their little niche groups, but we're going to back it up with science and see if it actually holds true, because these pyramids often don't even follow the science that's out there. So this is the old food pyramid. It told people to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. A lot of people were not doing that. It told people to eat a lot of carbohydrates. People were kind of doing that. It told people to not have a lot of processed foods. People were eating a ton of processed foods. So just off the start, people weren't even following this pyramid. So what's the next one look like?
All right, so now that we've kind of refreshed ourselves on what the old pyramid looked like, let's go ahead and see what this new pyramid looks like.
All right, so an inverted pyramid.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you basically see kind of what they did here. So, to the top left there, you have animal products. Now, it is agitating to me when I see the term protein, when I see animal products. I want everyone to realize that anything that has a structure has protein. All right, if it's built up with a shape, it has protein. Romaine lettuce is a complete protein. Broccoli has one of the highest amount of proteins per calorie. Kale has protein. Carrots have protein. Everything that's structured has protein. So just to start off with, the title protein is very deceptive, and it is something that has also been caught up in today's society where people think that eating an animal that's died is protein, even though that animal, a lot of times that they eat, like a cow, didn't eat any other animals to get its muscle. So it makes no sense. It's one of my pet peeves. So I'll try to leave it there, but protein is not an animal. It's definitely not something that's been killed. A protein is a building block. It's an amino acid, and it's basically in anything that has a structure. That's all you need to know. All right, so yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there's just something that I noticed in here, which I kind of appreciate it in a way that they did this. Even though I don't agree about the meat and the cheese needing to be our protein, I do notice that they put vegetables up there almost as if they're saying they're equal, as if you could either do meat or you could do vegetables. And I appreciate that because I think it acknowledges the fact that vegetables are a source of protein, like you were saying, where broccoli is, you can get your highest amount of protein per calorie when you compare it even to meat. And so I do appreciate that they did that. That's something that I noticed off the top here.
Yeah, and I appreciate your
I'm not
your
saying
optimism.
it's
No.
good.
But the one thing I'll show you, I'll show you how they technically didn't do that. Because look at this. They put protein, dairy, fats over here. So you have animals, and you have dairy, and then you have fats, right? And then over here they put vegetables and fruits. So in your brain, you're not associating vegetables and fruit with protein, at least the common reader wouldn't, because they're labeling this side different than this side.
You're
See what
saying
I'm saying?
because they're actually calling this protein
Yes.
and they're not calling the
Yes.
vegetables and
They
fruits
should call
protein.
this
I
animals.
gotcha.
Not protein. They just call it animals. And then they should just leave this as fruits and vegetables. And then maybe having an overarching title here that says protein, which would encompass both of them. But you can see it's very deceptive in they're calling this stuff over here protein and not this stuff protein, when both of these have protein in them.
That's a good point.
And this thing right here, per calorie, has more protein than this thing right here. So it's a huge deception. Look it up for yourself. I know it may sound really weird to you guys when I'm telling you that broccoli has more protein per calorie than steak, but check it out. Check it out for yourself. Look it up. Protein is one of the biggest things that's been hijacked and misunderstood in our society. So yeah, I mean, the one thing I will give the knowledge to, we're going to go through the actual article, is that they do still keep fruits and vegetables at the top. A lot of times there's these fad diets that have crept in where they eliminate fruits and vegetables altogether, and now they're only eating fats and meat, which is also just horrible for your health. And then it's interesting they have bananas down here and strawberries up here. So I'm not sure if there's any thought process to is like why the vegetables and fruits are, put in the certain positions that they are. And then at the end they have whole grains, which also doesn't make a lot of sense because you can get really good healthy whole grains. The one thing I will get them is they don't have any reference to processed foods on here.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually was going to bring that up in the last one. Was that I thought it was very interesting how in the old one it says foods and drinks with high in fat, sugar, and salt, and they just say not every day.
Exactly.
When really we really shouldn't be having this on the pyramid. Why is Coca-Cola considered an actual food item? That's not even real fluids. That's not real hydration. So why does it even belong there in the first place? So I'm with you. That shouldn't even be on there. We should be looking at whole foods.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we both will admit that they do have whole foods on the pyramid, which is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Education needs to be given on what exactly constitutes a protein. And then education also needs to be given about the benefits of whole grains. I think the whole grains are now the thing that people are knocking down in society when we get such a benefit from eating whole grains. They want you to have really a lot of animal products and fruits and vegetables, and then not a lot of, more vegetables and not a lot of fruits and very little grains. Because there's this misconception that's crept into society where they've equated sugar in foods, whole foods, as being the enemy. When we know that sugar in the fruits actually does not raise your blood sugar. So there's several misconceptions and misapplications of things. And it's partly because in our society, we like to break things down into macro and micronutrients. And when you do that, you miss the point about a whole food. And so you should never isolate out ingredients to try to get your science. You look at the whole food and see what the whole food does for your health. So now let's check out the article for the new pyramid and kind of get more understanding about where they were going with it.
Okay.
All right, there we go. All right, here's the article. All right, so this is a new guideline from 2025 to 2030, correct? And so here's the key recommendations. You mind reading that?
Yeah. So it says to eat the right amounts for you. The calories you need depend on your age, sex, height, weight, and level of physical activity.
Yeah, all good things. Your diet should be tailored to you in terms of how active you are, how old you are, your gender, your weight, and your height. So that all those things do matter. Yes.
Pay attention to portion sizes, particularly for foods and beverages higher in calories.
Okay. I mean, so far, so good. Okay.
Yeah. Hydration is a key factor in overall health. Choose water, still or sparkling, and unsweetened beverages.
Also, very, very good. I mean, these are if they kept it here, we'd be right on track. All right. Something else they said in 2025 to 2023 in the dietary guidelines, they recommend prioritizing high quality protein, healthy foods, vegetables, and whole grains, while avoiding highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates. Kind of like we talked about earlier, there's no mention of highly processed foods in their new guidelines.
Love it.
All right. So we mentioned earlier how they talked about protein. I told you my issue with protein. Let's look at this. Now they do say, look at this. Animal sources, eggs, poultry, seafood, red meat, and they say a variety of plant-sourced proteins, including beans, peas, lentils, legumes, nuts, seeds, and soy. If it has a structure, it's protein. All right. Now,
Because it's an amino acid.
it's an amino acid. Protein is an amino acid. Protein is not this this abstract thing that only an animal can produce. It's an amino acid. It's a building block of everything that has a form. It's kind of like a brick. It's like kind of like saying like a house is a house, but you forget that the house is built out of bricks. Like it makes no sense. Like it's amino acid. It's the building block of things that have structure. It's that simple. Don't get confused by all this foolishness. Really, it's really foolishness. All right, so swap deep fried cooking methods with baked, boiled, roasted, stir fried. We talk about that all the time. I mean, that's
how you're cooked,
very
how
good.
you cook your food matters.
Yeah, it matters a lot. Now, consume meat with no or limited added sugars, refined carbohydrates, starches, chemical additives. Yeah, so you know what? It's almost impossible. Well, for one, we don't recommend consuming meat, but also chemical additives. Yeah, we could do a whole presentation about how meat has been corrupted. The things that are in our environment are in the meat. There's a lecture we do where I go through the detox things, like the toxins that are in the environment. And we even showed how organic meats have more toxins than non-organic meats.
Wow.
All right, so it's integrated into the soil, it's everywhere. They tested polar bears in the Arctic, and they found that even the polar bears in the Arctic are being affected by plastics. So it's that how do you do that? Explain to me how you're going to avoid eating meat without these additives and things like that. This farm fresh, free range stuff, it's not working. Like they're still contaminated because it's in the soil. All right, it's in the water, it's everywhere. The best thing you could do is eat the foods that can naturally filter those things out, like fruits and vegetables. All right. If preferred, flavor with salt, spices, and herbs. Okay, you can do the same thing with vegetables. Now, the protein serving goals are interesting because we know that 0.8 to zero point 0.2 is really all you need. All right, after that, it starts converting that protein that you're eating. You think it's going to building muscle, but it's actually being stored in your liver, causing things like fatty liver disease and pancreatitis and other types of problems like thyroid issues. We know that a high animal protein diet can lead to thyroid issues. So this whole idea of eating all this protein, thinking you're being healthy, you're actually harming your body, especially if it's animal source. And we actually have some studies on that a little bit later. So we haven't fully turned you off by this presentation yet. Hang on, and you'll get to see some studies that back up what we're saying. All right, what about the dairy?
All right, so they actually tell you to consume dairy, and it says when consuming dairy, include full-fat dairy with no added sugars. Dairy is an excellent source of protein, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals. Daily serving goals is 3 servings per day as part of a 2,000 calorie dietary pattern. I already even have a problem with this because we've seen what dairy actually does to your bones. They've actually done studies of countries that are known for eating high sources of dairy, and they're known to also have a high level of osteoporosis in that area.
Yeah.
So, and any of the vitamins and minerals that they believe that you can get from milk, you can actually get from your fruits and vegetables for all that you need. So,
And you can get them in a much better form with fiber, and they're more easily absorbed. The thing about dairy is dairy seems to pull or not allow calcium to actually be absorbed as effectively as other things like sesame seeds, green leafy vegetables, apples. There's a lot of things that give you good vitamins. Dairy is not a great one. I do think it's interesting that they said that dairy is an excellent source of protein. So they're able to acknowledge that protein is not just animals here, okay? It's also in dairy. Isn't that interesting? I want to have people know that. Yeah, but down here, I'm sure you will not see anything about protein in the fruits and vegetables when they actually have more than a dairy sometimes. So it's a whole big thing. It's very confusing unless you really understand what a protein is. But I agree, you can get all these things from better sources. Dairy is found to be very toxic to the body. We have some slides to show you that in a little bit. So I would avoid this, avoid it altogether. Last week we just did a study on dairy and we showed how it's linked to asthma, allergies, sinusitis. I mean, really? We're gonna eat more dairy? It doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't eat something that causes harm thinking you're gonna get a little bit of a benefit when you can eat something that does not cause you any harm but gives you a better or the same benefit. It makes no sense. All right. Eat fruits and vegetables throughout the day. This is a good recommendation. We agree with this recommendation.
yes, 100%.
Most people do not eat enough fruits and vegetables, so you should eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Healthy fats are good. You do not have to get fats from meat, though, but it is good to get healthy fats. We know that there's benefits to having things like olive oil, avocados. These things are healthy fats. Don't get too much. Definitely don't do saturated fat. Do healthy fats that actually have a benefit to your health. So we can do another lecture on fats.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'm
anything
not
you're gonna
for
say
that.
about the healthy fats?
Yeah, I think even they have it right with the nuts. So you can get your fats from there
Yeah,
as
nuts.
well.
Yeah,
Walnuts
seeds.
especially. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, all that
plenty.
sounds so far so good in that portion.
Yeah. And mainly you want to get, a good balance of omega-3 to omega-6 healthy fats as well. When you do a lot of processed foods, you actually get a ton of omega-6, which tilt you to becoming more inflammatory. So you want to make sure you get your walnuts and your flaxseed, those things that have omega-3 to help to balance out the omega-6 fatty acids.
So here they say focus on whole grains. So prioritize fiber-rich whole grains, which is
Excellent.
great.
Excellent.
And they say that your serving should be 2 to 4 servings per day.
Okay.
It does say up here significantly reduce the consumption of high processed refined carbohydrates such as your white Wonder Bread,
Yes, we agree.
ready to eat, or packaged breakfast options, flour
Yeah.
tortillas, and crackers.
Good, great recommendation. We completely agree with that.
Yep. Here they say limit highly processed foods, added sugars, and refined carbohydrates. So yeah, so that's good so far. Highly processed, they specify packaged, prepared, ready to eat, or other foods that are salty or sweet. I'm glad that they specified that because sometimes, it's just good to define what processed really means. So anything that's quick to make like that, a lot of times is overly processed.
Yeah. If all you have to do is warm it up in a microwave or boil it in water for 5 minutes, it's most likely not the healthiest thing for
Yeah.
you. So yeah, we do need to limit those. This is a great recommendation.
Yes, I'm gonna move on.
Something else to say is eliminate artificial flavors, dyes, preservatives. These are all great. These are things that we tell people to do. These things are very toxic to the body. And I don't want people to get confused because a lot of times people say it's either being vegan or eating meat. Yeah, there's actually a lot of studies that show that an unhealthy plant-based or vegan diet or a vegetarian diet is just as detrimental to your health as a meat diet. So them pulling out these processed foods is going to be a net positive to people's overall health. But they still have something over here, the meat, that's also detrimental to the health. So why don't you choose option 3? Is like what I like to say. Why don't you eat something that's whole foods and plant-based and exclude the meat and the processed foods so you can actually really optimize your health. No these fake sugars, these alcohol sugars. Avoid all those snacks and all this junk. Avoid all that as well. It's not necessary. There's much healthier things. Now, what about the alcohol?
None.
Well, no, what do they say?
But they say, they say consume less alcohol for better overall health. People who should completely avoid alcohol include pregnant women, people who are recovering from alcohol use disorder or are unable to control the sodium amount they drink, and people taking medications or with medical conditions that can interact with alcohol. For those with a family history of alcoholism, be mindful of alcohol consumption and associative addictive behaviors.
Okay, so
Right.
this opens the door for alcohol consumption again, and we're going to do a slide a little bit later. But thankfully, in the more recent years, people have started to wake up to the harms of actually drinking alcohol, and this seems to kind of be going against the more current, up-to-date studies on the harms of alcohol at any dose. Like Jasmine said, none. This should have been the recommendation, but they're saying to do less. If you have alcoholism in your family, be mindful. This isn't good advice. So we're going to show you the studies because a lot of times people get caught up into their opinions. We're going to talk about the studies. All right, sodium. They're saying sodium is essential for hydration. Sodium is essential. You do need to have sodium in your diet. And in the plant-based space, we never tell people to never have sodium. We just say to limit the amount of sodium you put on your plate or the amount of salt that's in your food. So, they have some ranges here you can take a look at. Highly processed foods are typically higher in sodium. Also, when you eat out at restaurants, the food is typically higher in sodium.
Yeah,
So,
you're more apt to lessen your sodium when you cook at home. And we've found that even as well when we cook at home more and then we go out to eat, we recognize the salt way more than we did before.
Yeah.
So now we feel like, why don't we try to replicate this recipe or something similar, next time, and things like that. Or just find fresher, healthier places to eat if you do go out to eat.
Yep,
You
yep.
do the best that you can. Yeah.
all right, back to the slides.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back.
Okay. All right. So,
Oh.
Jasmine, tell us about this next slide here.
All right, so some of you guys, I think you got a sneak peek of it, but it's 15 banned foods in various different countries. And so some of you might be surprised or maybe even somewhat sad to find some of these items that are on here, but a lot of these, it's because they're highly processed. They have dyes and artificial flavors and things like that, especially maraschino cherries. But as you'll notice, the things that are banned in a lot of other countries outside of the US is our own milk, pork, farmed fish, chicken, and ground beef. So that's almost every kind of meat that we eat in our country. So yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, this is just to drive home the point that it's hard to tell people to eat meat that doesn't have any chemicals and all this stuff. These foods are banned in other countries for a reason because it's engraven into our soil. It's everywhere. You can't find meat that is not tainted. It's almost impossible to find in the U.S. In the U.S., the milk is just completely banned in other countries. I mean, there's hormones, there's things that's in the meat. One study we found was that the reason why this happens is because toxins are stored in fat. And so meat has cholesterol, which is a fat that will store toxins, and milk is a fat byproduct. So all these things would be the things that store the toxins. There's a really cool study they did on women who were breastfeeding, and they measured the toxins that were in a woman who was plant-based breast milk versus a woman who ate meat breast milk. And the woman who was plant-based had almost no toxins in her breast milk, while the woman who ate meat had a ton of toxins in her breast milk because she's getting them from the foods that she's eating. And so it's impossible to avoid this, especially if you eat the foods that have the fats that contain the toxins. All right, fats store toxins. And this is why when you do a detox, your fat cells break down. You have a lot of fat cells that come out because that's where your toxins are stored. So it just makes sense.
And that works the same way for us as humans, right? The more fat that we carry on our bodies, that can hold a lot of extra toxins as well.
Yeah. So that's one thing we found in COVID. We call it that it creates a cytokine storm. So basically, when you get sick and your body starts to raise its temperature and starts to break down unnecessary cells, sometimes there'll be toxins lurking in those cells, and then they'll leak out, and then it will trigger your body's own immune system to react to them, and then it creates this chain reaction called a cytokine storm, and that actually was a thing, or is a thing that actually leads to people getting really, really sick. It's more so what's actually already stored in your system. And so the best thing to do is to get rid of these toxins out of your body. So we do know that things like Skittles, artificial flavors, Mountain Dew has artificial flavors and caffeine and all this stuff in it. And all these other processed foods and Fruit Loops have toxins and toxic elements to them. But these meat, this beef, chicken, fish, and pork have toxins within them. And pork has parasites in it, a lot of them as well. So the best thing to do is to eliminate these products from your diet. Or, we say eliminate. Some people want to just significantly reduce, but eliminate them is the best way to go about this.
There's so much better things to eat.
There's so much better things to eat.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up on taking 4 foods out your diet when there's thousands of foods to eat.
All right, so now we have the Canadian food plates.
Yeah, so we want to just compare some other culture plate to the American plate. So we saw the plate for America start off with processed foods actually being on the pyramid, which was crazy. And now, thankfully, they're taking the processed foods off the pyramid, but then now they have meat being equal to fruits and vegetables. So the Canadian plate has it differently. So they have majority fruits and vegetables, and then they have a carbohydrate, and they have a animal meat, nuts and seeds. I'm not going to say protein because you already heard my talk about that as being equal on their plate. Now, this is a step better than the American new pyramid because at least they're acknowledging that fruits and vegetables are the healthiest things for us to eat. All right. So that's the one thing that was kind of confusing in this new pyramid. They're making it seem like animal proteins and animal fats are just as healthy as fruits and vegetables when that is just not true. So, all right, so that's the Canadian plate. Anything you want to say about that?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Okay.
All right. The next plate that we're going to look at is, I guess before we cover that, the China study.
All right, so before we talk about our favorite plate, let's talk about the reason why we've gotten to this conclusion. And it's based off of studies, not off of opinions, not off of fads on YouTube, not off of some guy who is on Instagram who thinks he knows about diet. No, this is off of studies. So let's talk about the studies. The China Study is a book written by T. Colin Campbell. And what he did is he did this huge population study of people in China who ate meat, who ate a lot of animal protein, and who didn't eat a lot of animal protein. And those who were exposed to carcinogens versus those who weren't exposed to carcinogens. And then those who were exposed to the same amount of carcinogens and a lot of different things he went into. Here's a little summary of the book. The China Study revealed that low protein, there's animal protein diets, which consist of 5% or less of animal protein, decrease enzyme activity, and prevent dangerous carcinogens from forming. Carcinogens are things that cause cancer, all right? Just in case people are wondering. Even if animal protein consumption increases to 20% of our diet, the cancer danger increases when animal-based as opposed to plant-based protein is consumed. All right, I hope everyone understood that. So there's a direct correlation between cancers and animal-based protein. And the one thing I just want really everyone to realize is that cancer rates are going up in our society, but so is this fad of drinking more milk or having a high animal protein diet, getting rid of fruits and vegetables. So there's no, weird coincidence here. This is a correlation. We know that animal protein is linked to cancer, and we're focusing on telling people to have a lot of animal protein in their diet, thinking that that's healthy, when it's lead to cancer, and the cancer rates are going up. So let's look at things honestly here. The researchers also looked at casein, which makes up 87% of cow milk protein. It's the highest in milk. They found that high doses of casein could actually activate cancer genes. So this milk that they told us to drink actually turns on cancer genes. Low or negligible amounts actually turn off the cancer genes. So you don't have the milk, the casein protein, the cheese, the casein protein in your diet, the cancer genes actually turn off. Furthermore, high dairy consumption increased the probability of developing prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is a huge one that's linked specifically to the casein protein. Specifically to casein protein. Let's see. Next one. Diets high in animal protein and saturated fat, which they're telling you in this new pyramid to eat a lot of saturated fat.
Yeah.
These were associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. So prostate cancer is on the rise in our society. Breast cancer is on the rise in our society. We know that breast cancer is linked to alcohol and animal protein. We know prostate cancer is linked to animal protein. We know that colon cancer rises in society linked to animal protein. We know that heart disease linked to saturated fat, animal protein. But we're being told to eat more of this. So what do you think is going to happen to the health of the society? Yeah, it's nice to get rid of the processed foods, which are awful. But for animal protein, it sounds like a net negative.
Yeah.
So diets low in fiber were linked to higher rates of colon and rectal cancer. The study recommends that we reduce animal protein consumption and we eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. The best diet has always been and will always be a high fiber, whole food, plant-based diet. It's always been the best diet. All right, can you read this for me?
Yeah. So red meat and processed meat consumption. Red meat is associated with an increased risk of colon and rectum cancer, and evidence also suggests it is associated with some other cancers such as prostate and pancreatic cancer. Examples of red meat include beef, pork, and lamb.
Yeah, things that we're being told to eat more of cause you to get cancer. I mean, that's just like, are people even looking at studies? And this is just one study. I could put 1,000 studies up about this. But are people actually looking at studies? They've done another study where they showed that colon cancer rates in people who eat meat versus people who don't eat meat are almost non-existent in people who don't eat meat. Colon cancer is almost non-existent in people who don't eat meat. Highly existent in people who do eat meat. It is a one-to-one correlation, especially red meat. It's a horrible one. All right, what about this one?
All right, so this is from the Washington Post. They said, a review of research involving almost 10 million people has found a direct association between eating too many ultra-processed foods and more than 30 health conditions, including heart disease, anxiety, and early death. Wow, anxiety is a big one, and we're seeing that a lot today.
Yeah, ultra-processed foods, the food dyes, those things like that. So it's almost as if they read this article and then they ignored the other article. What are we doing? Are we giving people half advice, or do you want to give people the full advice? We want people to be well, or do we want people to just eat the foods that we like to eat, and then hide the research behind it that shows that it's actually unhealthy as well. I mean, here's another thing. I mean, they got the ultra processed stuff down, right? It's associated with
Yeah.
50% risk of cardiovascular death, 48 to 53% high risk of anxiety, common mental disorders, 12% greater risk of type 2 diabetes. So, I mean, we know that ultra processed food is awful for you, but so is meat. So is meat. Here's another one about ultra processed foods. 21% greater risk of death from any cause when you eat ultra processed foods. So here's a study I want to mention to them about, to you guys about the prostate cancer. This stuff right here is linked to prostate cancer. If you have prostate cancer, or if you know someone who has prostate cancer, you need to let them know this stuff right here is directly linked to prostate cancer. And anything that's made out of this stuff is linked to prostate cancer. And the milk that the stuff comes from is also linked to prostate cancer. The milk protein casing actually promotes the proliferation of prostate cancer cells, such as PC3 and LNCAP. It turns them on, literally turns them on. All right, we don't need to do any complex genetic research on this. We know that milk turns on the genes that cause prostate cancer. So if you're a male, you need to get rid of the dairy. You need to get rid of the dairy.
So, Dr. Thomas, what about if someone comes and they say that, oh, well, I don't eat a lot of dairy?
That's another thing right there. So we know that if you have more than a half a cup of dairy a week, that's when you start seeing the worst effects of the dairy. But a lot of times people don't realize how much dairy they have in their diet. And a lot of times people tell me they don't eat a lot of dairy, but they have dairy every single day, multiple times a day. It's hidden in a lot of things. I mean, some things as simple as some breads will have dairy in them. I mean, anything. Candy bars have dairy in them. Breads have dairy in them. Some veggie meats have dairy in them. For my vegetarians out there, so you have to be careful. It's in a lot of stuff. So be careful.
So it's definitely something that we have to be more mindful of and really pay attention to.
Yeah, be mindful. Pay attention to it. All right. Well, all right. Breast cancer. All right. Now we're going to do a study on breast cancer. All right. Dairy is also associated with breast cancer. You can't get around it. You can't get around it. This is done by the National Cancer Institute. They found that women diagnosed with breast cancer were found to be those who consume the most dairy. The most dairy. It's linked to breast cancer. It turns on the genes. All right. It turns on the genes. The Harvard Nursing Health Study shows breast cancer. It is increased with one or more daily drinks of alcohol. So no alcohol is safe. If one or more daily alcohol drinks gives you breast cancer, then that means 0 would be the safe number.
Time to switch over to those mocktails.
Water.
Or water, yes.
But yes, mocktails are definitely better than alcohol. Colon cancer increase with 2 or more alcoholic drinks. 2 or more alcoholic drinks give you colon cancer. So we know that alcohol gives you cancer. We know that dairy gives you cancer. We know that eating meat gives you cancer. So why are these things in the recommendations for our diet? It doesn't make any sense. Red meat and processed meat increase colon cancer risk. So they got rid of the processed stuff. Thank you. This stuff gives you the same thing as this stuff. So get rid of both of them. Vitamin deficiency in B vitamins, calcium, vitamin D increase colon cancer risk. And if you don't have your fruits and vegetables, you will be deficient in your vitamins. All right? So make sure you have your vitamins. EPIC Oxford study showed that there was a 12% lower risk of cancer overall in vegetarians and vegans compared to other dietary patterns. The healthiest diet is not the Mediterranean diet. It's not the meat diet. It's not the lion diet or the keto diet or the paleo diet or whatever the diet you want to use. The healthiest diet is always the plant-based diet. It's the plant-based diet. There's a Seventh-day Adventist health study. Eating meat several times a week was associated with a 60% high risk of colon cancer. Now I'm giving you studies, people. Don't get mad at me. These are the studies. These are the studies. This is actually the research that should be given to the population at large. These are the studies. Frequent consumption of beef led to a 2-fold risk of bladder cancer. Beef was on the top of that pyramid there. Eating meat was associated with a high risk of ovarian cancer in postmenopausal women. These are just the studies. We're just reporting the studies. You can find this online. And the last thing we'll talk about, the last thing I'll just kind of hone in on, is that even the WHO has said that there is no level of alcohol consumption that is safe. The risks and harms associated with drinking alcohol have been systemically evaluated over the years and are well documented. There is no safe amount that does not affect health. No safe amount. alcohol is toxic, psychoactive, and dependence producing substance and has been classified as a group 1 carcinogen by the International Agency of Research on Cancer. And this was done decades ago. So we have all these nice commercials, now, in October about Cancer Awareness Month, or Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we know that meat, dairy, and alcohol cause breast cancer. But we'll have those 3 commercials on at the same time that we have Breast Cancer Awareness Month. There's a disconnect happening here. We have to be honest about what's going on here. All right, there's people not acknowledging what's actually happening. So so you guys can read this more. A risk of developing cancer increases substantially the more alcohol is consumed. So it's cumulative, just like the antihistamines are cumulative, right? It gets worse and worse as you use it. All right, so go ahead, Jasmine. Whew.
All right, so we talked about the different pyramids and the Canadian plate, as well as the health implications associated to everything. And so now we're going to look at the Plantrician Plate. And as you can see, the things that are not on this plate, there's no processed foods, there's no meat or dairy or cheese. It's all green vegetables, starches, spices, nuts and seeds, beans, legumes, and fruits, all things where you can get an adequate amount of nutrition for your daily need.
Yes. And so I'm a Plantrician provider, just in case you guys haven't caught on yet. So we promote a whole food plant-based diet. Me and Jasmine are both Plantrician supporters. They have these great resources on their website that we utilize a lot on SimpliWell. And the way this plate looks is the way we're trying to get everyone's plate to look. I think the only thing that may be missing is actually mushrooms, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing. Maybe we need to call them. Oh, no, there's a mushroom.
There's a mushroom.
There's a mushroom.
We need
Okay.
those mushrooms because we eat it.
Yes.
Yeah, they're really great for
B
as a meat
vitamins.
substitute and B vitamins.
And the B vitamins, yeah. All right, so this is where we're going. This is the goal. This is what SimpliWell is all about. This is where we try to get people to eating only the foods that improve your health. We don't need to eat one thing that hurts here and helps there, and something else that helps there and hurts there. We could just eat things that help only, no hurting. So let's eat for health.
Yeah. And if you want to see more resources on our site, you can actually visit our site at besimplywell.com, and you can go to the resource section, and whether you're dealing with kidney disease, diabetes, or you're pregnant or you're an athlete, there's resources there for you to help navigate to eat a whole food plant-based diet. So check it out when you get a chance.
Yeah. One thing I love about this plate here is that there's no mention of protein.
Because it's already assumed that this whole plate is protein.
Everything is protein.
Yeah.
Everything is protein. All right, so I'm sorry. I know it's my soapbox.
Oh,
I know
my
it's a soapbox, but it is hilarious to me. Like, it's sad and hilarious to me how protein has been hijacked. It's amazing. But yes, I want everyone to realize that everything on this plate is protein.
Yeah. So even though they came out with a new pyramid, this is the plate that we should be looking at for our lives.
Yes.
So,
Only benefits.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it,
All
Jasmine.
right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being with us at SimpliWell. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what foods or dishes that you enjoy as a whole food plant-based eater, or even share with us what are some questions you may have on how to start your journey. So thank you so much for being with us. So
All right.
talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.